Hi, this is Margaret Meloni, and welcome to the Death Dhamma Podcast. Open and honest discussions with wise and skillful teachers about their experiences with life, death, and Buddhism. If you wonder how others on the path have dealt with death and dying and grief, then be sure to listen in. Everybody has a story, a perspective, and a valuable lesson to share. Embrace death, live a full life, and learn how to love impermanence. Because as my dear father used to say, nobody gets out of this alive. Venerable Sumitta begins his time with me by chanting homage to the Buddha. And as a Theravada Buddhist monk, he is chanting in Pali as a way of remembering that it is because of the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings that we are able to spend our time together talking about death and Buddhism and other things. And such an amazing resource he is to us. As a Sri Lankan monk, for decades he's been a monk, he has experience with life, death, and Buddhism, and is able to integrate it and communicate it back to us in such a practical and accessible way. You know, for him, his experience with death began when he was 3. He doesn't really remember it, but he does know that when he was 3 years old, his father died. Then when he was 9, his 17-year-old sister drowned in the torrential river because in Sri Lanka, in the area where he lived, where 3 of the major rivers converged, during the time where there was torrential rains, sometimes there were significant flooding and overflows, and unfortunately, she was swept away. Then, as he proceeded on in life and had already become a monk, he received a call while he was in India at school that his brother, who was 36 years old, had a brain tumor. And unfortunately, that means that he lost his brother also. And at that time, since he was a Buddhist monk, he was the one that his family leaned on. He was their spiritual advisor. He was their practical advisor. And even though he was the second to the youngest, so he wasn't the eldest, he was the second to the youngest, that is the regard with which he has been held by his family and by members of his community because of the time he has spent training as a Buddhist monk and dedicating his time to Buddhism, to the community, and to the Dhamma. He actually became a monk at 11 years old. Now, part of his training when he was 11 years old, which was really difficult, he conveys this to me, and I don't think I could have done this when I was 11, was to go to funerals of people in the community who had died. And people would be crying, people would be wailing because, you know, sometimes at a service, memorial or funeral for the dead, sometimes some people, they're really able to have an emotional release, which does sometimes make other people uncomfortable. And as a youngster, he was a little bit uncomfortable, and they cried, and then he would cry. And he became afraid to go to these funerals, and he didn't want to go. And so he asked his teacher, or what we call his preceptor, if he could stop. If he could stop. And I think you can guess what his teacher said, which was, no. No, he must keep going. And through that, he began to realize that this was part of his training, and it was purposeful to help him learn to face the nature of death. And this is part of being a Buddhist, and definitely part of being a Buddhist monk. And I don't know if it was maybe because his teacher also saw that he had some death in his family at 3 and when he was 9. But at any rate, this was how he really began to learn about death and how it touches all of us. And he went through his life, and he is very educated, and he has trained in multiple countries at multiple universities. He has led a group of 400 monks, and we met in the PhD program at University of the West. So we were both working on our PhDs. And all of that took him away from his family. And what that helped remind him was that although, of course, he has a family whom he loves and misses, but his role as a Buddhist monk is to take care of everyone in the community, to be there for the people in the community. And the community is his family. And that's how it is for a monk. However, as a human being, he still was attached to his mother. He loved his mother. He missed his mother. And, she took care of him through the death of his father and through his early life. He says that his mother was so good at just stepping in and taking care of the entire family that it was a while before he even realized that he, didn't have a father, if you will. So she helped him, and then later he helped her. And so they helped one another with the concept of death. She helped him reinterpret the idea of death because when she died, it reminded him that he has had other mothers in other lifetimes. Perhaps she has been his mother in other lifetimes, and perhaps she will be his mother again in a future lifetime. I appreciate his honesty as he shares with the experiences of losing his mother and the difficulties that we all face in losing our parents, and especially when we lose that last parent. There's just something about losing that last parent. And if you've been listening for a while, you heard Venerable D and I speak about that at one of the very early episodes of the Death Dhamma podcast. And, there's something that comes up for some of us, especially as lay people. It goes something like this. If I were a better Buddhist, I wouldn't be sad. But this is wrong. This is wrong. There's no perfect way of being sad, and you don't want to expect that you will not be sad. Venerable Sumitta reminded me of one of the teachings from early Buddhism, that the Buddha left the earth and went to other realms in search of his mother, who had died when he, shortly after she gave birth to him. She died, and he was actually raised by his aunt. And he went in search of his mother after he had become enlightened to find her in another realm and to give her the teachings. This attachment that we might have to our parents, to our mothers, to our fathers, it's very strong. It's very strong. And you don't want to be hard on yourself when you have difficulty dealing with the death of a parent, or for that matter, the death of anyone. Speaking with Venerable Sumitta, it's another reminder. Sadness is a response that is probably going to happen to you. And there's nothing in your Buddhist practice that is supposed to make you not be sad. It helps you handle the sadness. It helps you be prepared. Something that Venerable Sumitta said was, as our parents get older and it becomes time for them to go, we don't want to hold them back. We want to give them the freedom to go. He reminds me of the circle of transmigration, right? Where there is birth, ultimately there will be death. Where there will be death, there might be rebirth. And when it's time for someone to go, we want them to go. Ultimately, we want them to not come back. But if they're going to come back, then let's send them on so that they come back and learn in their next cycle of rebirth. So we don't want to force anyone to feel like they need to stay longer. In fact, Venerable Sumitta, he taught his mother not to cling, and he reminded her of impermanence because as a mother, she missed him, and he spent so much time and has, spent so much time away from the family in Sri Lanka. And so she would say things to him like she wishes he would come back and visit more, and she wishes he would call more often. All the things that mothers say to their children, right? And he taught her, he said, no, it's not that I won't keep in touch with you. It's that you must learn not to expect it. You must learn not to expect it, because that would be to cling to me. And you want to become in a stage in your life where you're no longer clinging to anything. Not me, not my sisters, not my brothers, not your house. This is your time to let go and to become prepared, because your time is at hand. You've already seen many of the family members through their time, and your time is coming. And I want you to be as ready for it as possible. He reminds us that the pandemic has really brought us an amazing lesson. And that amazing lesson, as difficult as it has been, is the lesson of we don't know how much time we have. We don't know what is coming. We don't know when we are going. We don't know when someone else is going. As he said, he said, right now we're talking. After this, we don't know. And he's right. But that's not to live in fear. That is so that we can be positive and realistic, be more confident, and release our regrets. How do we get to this place that he shares with us? How do we become? So, for example, his mother, when she was dying, he did receive word from Sri Lanka, and he was here in the United States, and he spoke with the other elders at his temple. What should I do? Should I go? And they said, no, you shouldn't go. It's a long journey. You most likely won't get there in time anyway. You're in the midst of your semester at school. Stay here. And what they did is they created a lovely memorial service for her so that he could honor his mother from here in the United States. And he said that his mother, she loved to listen to chanting. Okay, so again, remember at the beginning of my discussion with him, he starts off by chanting homage to the Buddha. And there are many, many chants. And she always enjoyed listening to chanting. So while she was being driven to the hospital, there were some family members in the car, and I think a monk or two. She asked the monks if they would chant while they were on the way to the hospital. And while they were on the way to the hospital and they were chanting, she fell asleep. And she never woke up. And that was her beautiful and peaceful death. How do we get to this place, right? This isn't the first time that I've shared with you about the peaceful death and the benefits of the peaceful death. How do we get to this place? Practice, meditation, exhibit loving kindness, do contemplative meditation on death, and do it consistently, and do it now. Do it now. Keep your heart and your mind open to death. Work to let go of any regrets you have from your past because they don't serve you. And I love that Venerable Sumitta said, everyone's done something that they don't feel good about. Work to forgive yourself, to release it, because that too leads to a troubled mind. But if you work to let go of your regrets and to forgive yourself and others, then you create a mind that's full of peace. And for the ones who have gone before us, one of the best things that we can do good things, and do good things in their name. And in this way, we can perhaps pass on to them some of the merit that we earn from doing good things. It may reach them. I joked with him a little bit when he talked about this, and I said, yes, I could earn merit for my mother. And he joked about how that was like in an account. And I said, yes, she was always very good with a budget, but she liked to shop a little bit. I love the idea of being able to send my mom some merit so she has some more credit in her account so that she can continue on in her journey in the way that she wants to, in the best possible peaceful way. That's what we want to do right now, right here. Work on doing good things, release your regrets, meditate on death, keep meditating. Don't worry so much about the future. Think about death, but don't worry about it. This has been the Death Dhamma Podcast with Margaret Meloni. Thank you so much for being here. And if you liked it, please share it with your friends and your Sangha members and leave reviews. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be free from suffering, and may you come visit me and join my community at margaretmeloni.com, MargaretMeloni, and check out Carpooling with Death, how living with death will make you stronger, wiser, and fearless. Now you can find it on Amazon in Kindle, audio, paperback, and hardback. Bye for now.